What do you do to relax? And if you're finding it hard to answer that question, then it's definitely worth considering what sort of stress management practices that you can build into your daily life. This is absolutely crucial for gut health, and especially when it comes to conditions like IBS, SIBO, which stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and IBD. And extremely important, especially in terms of preventing those kind of conditions, but also in overcoming these conditions. And it's something that can't be underestimated, and I emphasize to each and every one of my clients. My name is Carmela, and I'm a nutritional therapist, and I specialize in gut health. And today in this video, I want to talk about the nervous system, and in particular, the vagus nerve, which has received quite a lot of media attention and lots of people are familiar with now, and how important this is in relation to gut health. And then we're going to just look at some very easy practical tips for stress management strategies that will support your vagus nerve, and also really nifty way to be able to assess your progress when you do start to do more stress management. So looking at the your nervous system. So your nervous system works in two main modes. The first is the fight or flight, and that's when your sympathetic nervous system is in action. Then you have your parasympathetic nervous system, which is what some people refer to as the rest and digest function of that part of the nervous system. And this is really where the vagus nerve is most active, is just during this rest and digest phases. So the vagus nerve is really the communication superhighway between the brain and the gut. That's a two-way communication. And it's really important for two main reasons. So the vagus nerve is very important for motility, and basically you won't have very good motility if your vagus nerve is not functioning in the right way. So the vagus nerve activates something called the migrating motor complex. And this is responsible for the sweeping action that goes through your gut. This happens on an empty stomach, and it's very, very essential. It sweeps through any bacteria lying around, any food remnants, just sweeps it all through your gut, and it's called the kind of the housekeeper function. And if this isn't working well, then bacteria tends to start fermenting any leftover food, and that's where you get bacterial overgrowths, and most specifically, that's when you get something like SIBO. So you need good vagal tone for this to be working properly, and also for just general peristalsis, which is the normal muscular contractions that moves food through the gut. So if you have a lot of constipation, especially chronic constipation, then definitely your vagus nerve will be one of the things you want to look at. And then the second very important function of the vagus nerve is that it influences your immune system. So this is really important for something like inflammatory bowel disease, because the vagus nerve, when it's working properly, will actually downregulate, meaning reduce the production of inflammatory chemicals in the body. And so right there, you're reducing inflammation, and you're preventing the damage to the gut lining that occurs in an IBD. And research has shown that people with inflammatory bowel diseases have a low heart rate variability, and that's people usually refer to it as HRV, and that's a really important indicator of whether your vagus nerve is working properly. So if you have a high heart rate variability, then that's good. That's what you're aiming for, and that's when your nervous system is well regulated. So that's not necessarily happening in people who have IBD, and something which is really worth paying attention to in terms of stress management practices. So that brings me on to what are good things that you can do. And it's always really simple, but it's just a matter of being consistent, doing something daily, and especially if you start to observe yourself observe your nervous system ramping up, it's good to sort of be really tuned in and start doing these kind of practices. So breathing is always one that people talk about, but for vagal tone, that's to say like proper vagus nerve activity, the right type of breathing includes doing much longer out breaths compared with your in breaths. So what I would do is breathing in for 5 seconds, breathing out for 7 seconds. And you can sort of change that ratio a little bit, but always making sure that the out breath is longer than the short breath. That's really useful, really easy. Being out in nature is important. Spending time with your pets, and very much this is about connection. That really has quite a strong correlation with healthy heart rate variability. So spending time with family and friends, spending time with your pets, as I said, those are really important. And then things like yoga, particular postures like bending over postures are really good too. But really, I mean, it's anything. Once you start to be tuned into how you feel, you'll know whether you're getting ramped up, and then you can experiment with things that you enjoy that might help you to feel much calmer. And I would definitely stress doing something like that before you have a meal if you get a chance, just a little bit of breathing or something like that before a meal. And also, if you can, just eating in the old-fashioned way, in terms of just eating with family and friends, you know, properly sitting down, is also really, really useful, and that promotes really good digestion, and you're less likely to suffer all these gut health problems and indigestion and everything else that comes with that. So then, lastly, I've mentioned there's a really good way to measure how well your stress management practices are working. And I would just start to sort of practice these breathing and everything else for a while. And then if you have a smartphone, you can actually measure heart rate variability, which is great. So I would try and keep track of your heart rate variability every day, start measuring it over a week and ideally over about a month. And hopefully you'll see your HRV going up. And that's a good indication that you're beginning to regulate your nervous system properly. And it's dead easy to do. All of this is really simple. So I hope you try these things. It's really, you know, like I have found my clients, no one, hello bird, no one can get 100% better unless they have a healthy nervous system, you know, then they have moments of calm. So give it a go, and thank you for listening. And if you can like, share, subscribe, that would really help me too. I'm out here in the cemetery, which is actually really, really lovely and so calming, but it's getting dark, so I maybe want to run away quite soon. Bye-bye.